I'm always on the hunt for a good spin to knit project. I love spinning with specific projects in mind, and I haven't had any spinning projects on the wheel since I finished my last big sweater spin. And when I saw that Andrew Mallory was hosting a Jaunty along where you spin to knit the Jaunty shawl, I immediately went stash diving. I've knit one Jaunty shawl. I finished this one, which is knit out of Fiber Space Cumulus, just a single strand of it. And this one was just so much fun to knit that I knew I would be making another one. Not only that, but I really like wearing it. I think it's just very easy to style. The half fisherman's rib is very mindless once you get the repeat down, and it has a rhythm to it that makes it just really fun and somewhat meditative to knit. I'm not usually a person who describes my knitting as meditative, but I'm getting ahead of myself because this is a spinning vlog, and so I'm just gonna be spinning in this video. Like I said, I went stash diving and I picked out a couple braids that I had recently purchased, and I was trying to figure out how to do a combo spin, mostly just using what I had. I was open to potentially buying another braid of fiber to add to it, but I was mostly focused on using up my stash. My idea for this spin was to do a 3-ply combo spin. I haven't done a 3-ply in a while, and they're just a lot of fun to do. It combines the colors in an interesting way, and it also evens out your yarn and makes it just really nice and plump. So I started with 3 braids for my stash that I thought would look nice together, but they were not all the same size, the same weight. So I had a little bit of a challenge to figure out. So I have this basket of fiber that I've picked out. First is this braid by Yarn Jam. This is some Shanico. This will be my first time spinning Shanico, and I've heard so much about it, and I'm really excited to try it. This is in the colorway Neon Sunset, and it is their Confetti Tweed base, so it's got some tweed in it. Then to go with this, I also have this braid from Hello Yarn, which funnily enough ended up being very similar color-wise. I didn't realize how similar they were when I bought this. But this is some BFL. This is in the colorway Bonbons, and this is also 4 ounces, so together these are 8 ounces. Now I was really debating the 3rd braid, and I found this, and I felt like this would just add a really nice pop of blue because these are mostly warm colors. This one does have like the denim blue that I think is gonna go really well with this. Like, they're very similar colors. And then this one does have some blue tones as well. They're just very light. So I think these colors are going to look really nice together. This is a 2-ounce braid, so I can't just spin this as its own ply and do a traditional 3-ply. So I've really been sitting with this for days because I can't decide exactly how I want to go about this. I considered buying another 2-ounce braid of this same colorway. This is from Fat Cat Knits, and it's one of their repeatable colorways, so I could just buy another one. Also, this is some Targhee, which I love spinning, and I think it's gonna go really well with the Shanico and the BFL. I have decided against buying another 2 ounces of this because I don't want this to be a 3rd ply. I want this to be like pops of color, similar to how these braids will spin up. So I considered kind of making my own braid, like buying a few different single color braids and then paring it down to 4 ounces and like making my own. But I think that's gonna be too much fiber. I don't think I want to spend 12 ounces for this. I think realistically, I would be totally fine just spinning these 2 together and just having 8 ounces of yarn for this project. But I just can't get this out of my head. I just love this. So I'm basically just adding this extra 2 ounces in for the color and not necessarily to like add fiber to the total spin. So I have some decisions to make. After going back and forth through all of my options and really sitting with what I wanted to do for several weeks, I finally got an idea. I have been thinking a lot about combination drafting. This is something that I have done before in my 3-ply 2 ways socks, so I am familiar with this technique. But as I was thinking about my different sized braids and trying to figure out a good way to combine them, I came back to this technique because I think this is actually going to be the perfect way to incorporate the blue braid. And so my plan is to hold this with the other braids and combination draft it together. I just recently finished this handspun cardigan that I'm wearing, and it's obviously quite stripy, which I really like, but I kind of wanted to do something different for my next spinning project. And as I've looked at a lot of people's jaunty shawls, I realized I actually don't want like a super stripy shawl. I want something that is a lot more blended and cohesive. And I think that these are gonna be really good colors to try this out with. So I'm very excited to give this a go and see what I get. And I should mention that I learned about this technique in the Yarnitecture book by Jillian Moreno. This is an excellent book on spinning, and there is a section on drafting 2 different colors together, and she gives several tips on how to actually do it and what is going to work well. And I think the most important tip in here is to use smaller strips of fiber than you think you should. I do typically strip down my fiber pretty small because I think it helps a lot with drafting. It makes it easier to draft. But she says to use less than a finger's width for both pieces, and then obviously you'll be holding them together. And she has more tips on like if you should hold them side by side or stacked, or even like how to hold more than 2 together. So I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun experimenting. And this is a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. I reference it all the time if I have a question, or even I'm just looking for inspiration or ideas on what I can do. Okay, so now I'm gonna start breaking down my fiber and prepping it. The first one that I'll do is the Hello Yarn BFL. This one is so pretty. Like this right here is just my favorite. So all I'm really focused on here is just breaking it down so that I have those thinner sections to spin. I don't think I'm gonna worry too much about how the colors are showing up. To get started, I'm just gonna go ahead and split it in half, especially since it already wants to do that. Okay, there's already fiber flying around everywhere. And then I'm gonna split these 2 sections in half again. Actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna split these in thirds. And then in half again. When I split fiber, I don't expect it to come out incredibly even every time. In fact, I would say the majority of the time I end up with different sized pieces, and I think that's perfectly fine. So I'm just splitting the braids lengthwise, trying to get them close to the same size. So because these are such long pieces and I don't want these to like accidentally break, I am going to braid these pieces. Now, this is a piece that I might want to strip down further or attenuate it a little bit before I spin it, especially if I'm gonna spin this piece with the other one, if I'm gonna combo draft. If I'm not gonna combo draft, I will probably just leave this as is, but I will just make sure that these pieces are small enough that I don't have to do too much prep as I'm spinning. And what I'm doing right now is just putting this into a little braid so that my fiber doesn't break apart. And this is like a crochet chain. So you just create a slip knot at one end, and then you take your loop and you pull the fiber strand through like that. Braiding your pieces like this does take a while, and it also takes some time and some attention when you are taking out the braids so that you don't break the fiber. But I do think it's a really nice way to contain your fiber if you know that you're gonna be going into a longer spin that's gonna take you weeks or months, because it just organizes the fiber and keeps it nice so that it doesn't break or get caught on things if you're moving around your project like I often do. I think once I break all of my fiber down, I will just take all of this into my living room and like turn on a show or something that's a little bit more engaging while I do this, because it's a little bit boring. But I do really like seeing the colors. Like, this braid is so pretty. It honestly didn't look as colorful in the bag, and now that I've opened it all up, I'm realizing just like how much color is in it, and it's making me really excited. I will kind of decide in the moment how I want to combo draft, because I'm not going to be combo drafting the blue with all of this. Obviously, I don't have enough to do that. So I think I'll just kind of decide as I pull out pieces how much I want to incorporate that blue. And I think that'll be the fun of it, is just like figuring that out as I go and seeing, you know, what my singles look like, and just determining how I want to add that. Okay, so this piece is all ready to go. Starting the next strand, so I will just make a slip knot. And then start to make a chain. I've broken everything down, and I split all of the fiber into thirds as evenly as I could. And then I kept 2/3 of the variegated braids together. So this is 2/3 of the yarn jam with 1/3 of what I have of the blue. And then in here I have 1/3 of each braid. So I'm mixing all the colors together into a single ply. And the other 2 plies are just going to be each variegated braid with some blue mixed in. So each of these are going to be a ply, and then I will ply them all together, of course. And I have already started on this spin, and I have some thoughts, so let me show you. I am spinning this, at least the start, on my Ashford eSpinner 3. I've started spinning the ply that has all of the braids mixed together. So at this point I have gotten a taste of each fiber. What you're seeing on top here is the Hello Yarn BFL, and I really like these colors together. I think this is going to make a really interesting yarn. I am aiming for my singles to be around 25 to 30 wraps per inch, which is close to my default single, maybe a little bit thinner than what I consider to be my default. At least in this moment. And so that will give me a finished yarn of somewhere around 9 to 10 wraps per inch. The Jaunty is a gaugeless pattern, so it doesn't really matter what my final yarn weight is, as long as I have enough yardage to get me a decent sized scarf, and I think I will. As far as my spinning experience is going, I am really enjoying most of it. I love spinning the BFL. I also love spinning the Targhee. The Shanico is kind of interesting. My braid has tweed in it, and I wasn't really sure how that was going to spin up for me, and I would say I'm mostly somewhat annoyed by it as I spin. The thing is, I think it looks really nice, but as I'm spinning, if there's like a big chunk of it, I just want to remove it because I really like a smooth yarn. I do think it's gonna produce a really cool yarn, and I want to keep the tweed in it. Like, that's the appeal of this braid. But beyond the tweed, it's very soft, and it kind of wants to fall apart as I spin it, which is not my favorite spinning experience. What I'm struggling with at the moment is the combo drafting, because when I draft this with the Targhee, they're both such soft fibers that neither of them really want to like stick together. It's easier to combo draft with the BFL because it's so sticky. But what's happening with the Shanico is that I'm holding 2 of the fibers together to draft them together, and sometimes one of them will like jump ahead, and then I'll only be drafting the one and I'll lose the second one. And so I find that I really have to like hold them together and manage that well while I'm drafting. Otherwise I just end up spinning one of them. So I'm gonna keep working on it because I suspect this is a skill thing, and it's just something that I need to get used to. And I'm absolutely loving the colors that I chose. I'm really happy that it worked out to put these together, because this was just what I had in my stash. I mean, I did buy the 2 variegated braids somewhat recently, but I didn't buy them like intending to put them together. So it really worked out. Well, I guess we'll see when I finish the yarn.
but I'm gonna go ahead and finish at least one of my plies before I check in. And then it's just a matter of doing the same thing over and over. Just continue spinning for each of the plies. And then we get to see the fun part of how the 3 plies come together to create a hopefully beautiful skein. As I worked with the tweed fiber, I definitely found it got much easier, and I was able to spin the size of single that I wanted while keeping those neps in, which is great because I love the way that tweed yarn looks and I want to spin more of it in the future. So I'm glad that I eventually began to enjoy the process of spinning it. Similarly, with the parallel drafting, I did get the hang of it by about a half to 2/3 of the way in. I would say I never fully enjoyed the parallel drafting, especially when I was drafting the Targhee and the Shanico, because those are 2 fairly slippery fibers. The BFL was easier to draft, as I mentioned, but I still never loved the process of parallel drafting. I found myself waiting until I got to sections where I could just draft a single fiber because the parallel drafting took a little bit more attention or just managing of the fibers than I really enjoy. That being said, I do think it's a very interesting technique. I like the way that it changes the colors and blends them together in a unique way, and I can definitely see myself doing this again in the future. It's just one of those process things that I don't enjoy the process as much as I enjoy the finished object. I'm just about done with my second bobbin. I have this to go, as well as these 2 pretty small pieces, and it's looking really pretty. I now have 2 full bobbins. This one is with all of the fiber combined. This one is with mostly the yarn jam. I'm working on my last bobbin, the Hello Yarn bobbin that I'm probably about 1/3 of the way into. The BFL is definitely easier to draft with the Targhee, but I'm just so much faster when I'm only spinning 1 fiber. I have found it easiest to hold my 2 pieces together side by side. The Yarnitecture book does mention that you can hold it like this, or you can hold them on top of each other like this. I've tried it both ways, and I always default back to just holding them side by side. I find it easier to manage both colors. I can pinch some fiber from each piece, and that is a way that I can make sure I'm actually spinning both and not just spinning one. I definitely agree with her advice to keep your fiber very small. This is about as thick as I will spin mine together. Even then, I would say you could definitely strip your fiber a little bit thinner than this, but I'm mostly just keeping it at this width because I've already prepped it this way and I find it's working for me just fine. I'm having a lot of fun with this, so I'm gonna get back to spinning. The main thing for me is that I just have to draft slowly when I'm trying to combine fiber, and that was a little tedious, I guess, just because I do like to go pretty fast. One thing I did try out, that was a tip from the Yarnitecture book, is to attenuate your fibers together. So when you are pre-drafting, you can pull apart your fiber enough so that it is open, but it doesn't break. And if you're holding the 2 strands together, that can help kind of blend those fibers so that when you are actually spinning, they combine a little bit easier. I decided to ply on my EEW 6. So this was my setup for holding the bobbins while I plied. So I have a little bit left of this bobbin. I had run out of this bobbin, and then this bobbin had quite a lot of singles left on it. So I decided to make a center pull ball with it, and then I'm gonna 3-ply this, pulling from the inside and the outside with whatever I can get off of this, which is probably not the equivalent of this, but that's okay. I'm just trying to maximize what I can get out of it. One thing that does happen with the EW is that your tension band can break pretty frequently just because there's so much friction on the plastic bobbins. I just use a cotton yarn for my tension band, but I might look into some different options because I did have it break on me twice during the plying, and it is not fun when that happens. Your bobbin loses tension and your yarn just goes everywhere. After I finished getting that all plied up and packed as much of the yarn as I could onto my 8-ounce bobbin, I wound it off on my homemade Nitty Knotty. I blocked my yarn and thwacked it. I never consider a yarn done until I've fully set it in water. And lately I have been putting in a little bit of this Unicorn Baby Beyond Soft. I used just about a teaspoon or so, maybe a little less for this skein, and it helps with static electricity, and it also helps soften the fiber. I don't necessarily need this skein to be any softer, but it's just something that I've been experimenting with to see what I think of it. I'll have to report back because I haven't used it enough to say. But just a couple days later, after fully drying, a baby was born. 9.3 ounces. I just love making these like monster skeins that they look ridiculous, but when I apply, my goal is always to pack as much fiber as I can onto my bobbin. And the EEW bobbins are huge. I mean, they say they hold 8 ounces, but I put over 9 ounces onto a single bobbin. However, that is where I maxed out because I do have this little baby skein. This one is just 46 yards. It weighs 1 ounce and it's very, very cute. I think this yarn turned out very interesting. I kind of go through this creative process with a lot of my projects where I get really excited about an idea and then I get very skeptical of my execution and I really start to doubt myself. I begin to hate what I'm making. And then by the very, very end, I kind of come back around and I like it. That's exactly what happened with this skein. I really wasn't sure about it for a bit. It reminds me of those like colorful 90s carpet couches, you know what I mean? And for that, you know what? I love it. I definitely achieved a much more blended yarn. There's not going to be a whole lot of striping. There's maybe some like larger blue sections and maybe some gold or orange sections in here, but it's quite a blended yarn. So I am super excited to see how this knits up. I think it's going to make a really good jaunty shawl. Here is a close-up of the yarn. It turned out to be about a worsted weight, which is kind of what I was hoping to achieve. I just didn't want anything thicker than a worsted weight. And this big skein weighs 263 grams, and I got a total of 448 yards just from this skein. So combined, I have almost 500 yards of this. So this is gonna be a huge shawl. I don't think I'm gonna knit all of this yarn into a jaunty, but I'm just happy that I don't have too little of the yarn. I would say it's about 9 wraps per inch, maybe like 10 wraps per inch in some sections. I want to hear all of your thoughts. What do you think of parallel drafting? Have you done it? Would you try it? What do you think of the way that my skein turned out? You can be honest. This was an experiment, so you probably won't hurt my feelings unless you're super mean, but I am genuinely interested in hearing your true thoughts. So let me know, and I will see you in the next one with hopefully another crafty knitting focused vlog.